The meeting room was huge and filled with angry voices. Ambassador Jin Woo sat quietly in his chair while alien beings from across the galaxy shouted at each other. Their strange voices echoed off the metal walls of the space station. Jin Woo watched them argue and felt tired. He had been to many meetings like this one. The aliens always got upset about something. Today they were scared because people were trapped on a dangerous planet. High Counselor Vextal stood up on his long, thin legs. His body looked like it was made of blue glass. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking ice. "The situation is very bad," Vextal said. "Our research team is stuck in the Crimson Wastes on planet Kepler 442b. The place is full of poison. The air burns your lungs. The rain is made of acid. Even the animals there eat metal." Jinwoo knew about the Crimson Wastes. Every pilot in the galaxy had heard stories about that place. Ships that went there never came back. The few photos that existed showed a red and orange landscape that looked like hell. A fat alien with 6 arms waved them all around as he talked. His name was Counselor Grexmok, and he came from a water world. "We lost contact with the research station 3 days. Ego," Grexmok said. "The storm hit them hard. We think their building is broken. The people inside are probably dying right now." Jinwoo thought about the research team. There were 8 people trapped down there. One of them was Hai Jin, a human scientist who studied alien animals. She was smart and brave. Jinwoo had met her before at other meetings. The other 7 people came from different worlds. There was a tall blue Altarian who studied plants, a small furry Kethran who knew about rocks and minerals, a robot like Nexari who could fix almost anything, 2 green Zephyrians who were experts on weather, a crystal being from Vorth Prime who understood energy, and a floating gas creature from the nebula worlds who could read electromagnetic fields. All of them were now trapped in the most dangerous place in known space. Counselor Zeth Mora slithered forward on her snake-like body. Her scales were black and shiny. When she spoke, her voice was like a whisper. "No rescue has ever worked in the Crimson Wastes," she said. "The poison kills you in minutes. The heat melts metal. The storms tear apart anything that flies. We sent 3 rescue ships last year to find missing explorers. None came back." The room became quiet. Jinwoo could hear the air machines humming in the walls. Outside the big windows, he could see stars scattered across the darkness of space. Elder Thak Rin was the oldest being in the council. He came from a planet where people lived for thousands of years. His skin was like old leather, and his eyes were milky white. "Perhaps we should accept that they are lost," Thakrin said in his slow voice. "It is sad, but we cannot risk more lives for people who are probably already dead." Many of the other counselors nodded. They had seen too many good people die trying to save others. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Sometimes you had to let people go. Jinwoo stood up slowly. The room became quiet as all eyes turned to him. He was not tall compared to most aliens, but something about him made others pay attention. "I will go," Jinwoo said. The silence broke as everyone started talking at once. Vextal's glass-like body flashed with different colors. Grexmok's 6 arms moved so fast they looked like a blur. Zeth Mora coiled her body into a tight spiral. "That is impossible," Vextal said. "Humans are tough, yes. You survive in places that would kill most of us. But the Crimson Wastes is different. Nothing lives there. Nothing survives there." Jinwoo had heard this before. The aliens thought humans were crazy because they went to dangerous places. But they also respected humans because humans often came back alive from those dangerous places. "The atmospheric readings are beyond terrible," Grexmok said. He pressed buttons on a small device and numbers appeared in the air above the table. "The air has sulfur dioxide levels that would burn your throat closed. The temperature changes from freezing to boiling every few hours. The radiation would cook your DNA." Jinwoo looked at the numbers. They were very bad. Most aliens would die just from breathing the air for a few seconds. But humans were different. They came from a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. Their bodies knew how to deal with poison and radiation better than most. Species. "The predators are the worst part," Zethmora whispered. "They eat metal and stone. Their teeth can bite through steel. Their claws can tear apart vehicles. They hunt in packs and they are very smart." Elder Thakrin leaned forward. "Young, human, I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen brave warriors die in less dangerous places than the Crimson Wastes. Why do you think you can succeed where so many others have failed?" Jinwoo thought about the question. He had been to many dangerous planets. He had walked on worlds, with acid oceans and mountains of sharp glass. He had survived in space when his ship broke down. He had made friends with creatures that other species thought were monsters. Because, Jinwoo said, humans are good at making friends in strange places, and we are very hard to kill. Some of the aliens laughed, but it was not a mean laugh. They had seen humans do impossible things before. Humans had a way of turning enemies into allies. They found food where others saw only poison. They built homes in places where others saw only death. Counselor Vextal's body flashed bright blue. "Even if you could survive the journey to the research station, how would you get the survivors out? Our biggest rescue ships cannot fly in those storms." Jinwoo smiled. It was the kind of smile that made aliens nervous because they knew it meant a human was about to do something very dangerous. "Give me 48 hours, Jinwoo said. "If I am not back by then, you can write a sad report about how the crazy human died trying to save his friends." The room was quiet again. Outside the windows, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Elder Thakrin spoke first. "The council will vote. One by one, the aliens raised their hands or tentacles or whatever. They used to vote. Even though they thought Jinwoo would probably die, they voted to let him try. Humans had surprised them before. As the meeting ended, Jinwoo walked toward the door. He had a rescue mission to plan, and not much time to do it. The people trapped in the Crimson Wastes were counting on him, even though they did not know he was coming. Behind him, the aliens were already talking about what to put in his memorial service. Jinwoo's small ship cut through the thick red clouds above planet Kepler 442b. The air outside was so full of poison that it looked like blood. His ship's computer kept making warning sounds. The screen showed danger alerts in 12 different alien languages. "Hull temperature rising," the computer said in its calm voice. "Atmospheric toxicity at maximum levels. Recommend immediate retreat." Jinwoo turned off the warnings. He had heard enough bad news for one day. Through the front window, he could see the surface of the planet getting closer. It looked like a nightmare made real. The Crimson Wastes stretched. Out below him like a sea of red and orange rock. Steam rose from cracks in the ground. Pools of bubbling liquid reflected the strange light from the planet's 3 suns. In the distance, tall spires of crystal grew from the earth like frozen lightning. Jinwoo's special suit was already working hard to keep him alive. The helmet showed him readings that would scare most people. The air outside had enough acid to dissolve metal. The radiation could kill most aliens in minutes. The temperature jumped from very hot to very cold without warning, but Jinwoo was not most people. He was human. His species had learned to survive on a world that tried to kill them every day. Earth had taught humans to be tough. His ship landed on a flat area between 2 steaming pools. The ground was hard and black, like glass that had been melted and cooled many times. Jinwoo checked his equipment one more time. He had food for 3 days, water for 5, and air for 10. He also had weapons, medical supplies, and tools. Most importantly, he had something that other rescue teams did not have. He had hope. Jinwoo opened the ship's door and stepped onto the surface of hell. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, which made walking easier. but the ground was rough and covered with sharp rocks. Steam hissed from cracks everywhere. The air smelled like rotten eggs mixed with burning metal. According to his scanner, the research station was 15 kilometers to the north. The signal was weak, but still there. That meant at least some of the people inside were still alive. Jinwoo started walking. The landscape was stranger than the photos had shown. The rocks were not just red and orange. Some were purple and green. Others seemed to glow with their own light. Plants grew here and there, but they looked nothing like normal plants. These had metal leaves and roots that dug deep into stone. After an hour of walking, Jinwoo stopped to rest. His suit was doing a good job of keeping the poison out, but it was working very hard. He could hear the air filters running all the time. That was when he saw the first creature. It looked like a wolf, but its fur was made of metal scales that shone like mirrors. Its eyes were bright yellow and very intelligent. It stood on a hill about 50 meters away, watching Jinwoo. Jinwoo had seen many strange animals on many different worlds. He knew that most creatures were not naturally aggressive. They usually attacked only when they were scared or hungry. The metal wolf did not look scared. It tilted its head to one side like a dog trying to understand something new. More wolves appeared on the hills around Jinwoo. Soon there were 8 of them, all watching him with those bright yellow eyes. They moved without making any sound. Their metal scales caught the light from the 3 suns and threw it back in rainbow colors. Jinwoo knew he was in trouble. 8 predators could easily kill 1 human, even a human in a protective suit. He could use his weapons, but that might just make them angry. Instead, Jinwoo did something that surprised even himself. He sat down on a rock and opened his food pack. The emergency rations were not very good, but they smelled like real food. Jinwoo took out a nutrition bar and unwrapped it slowly. The metal wolves watched every move he made. Jinwoo took a bite of the nutrition bar. It tasted like cardboard, but he pretended it was delicious. He made happy sounds as he ate. The largest, Wolf, the one with the brightest scales, started walking down the hill toward him. It moved carefully, ready to run if Jinwoo did anything threatening. Jinwoo broke off a piece of the nutrition bar and held it out toward the wolf. The wolf stopped, just out of reach. It sniffed the air, trying to understand what Jinwoo was offering. Its nose twitched, and Jinwoo could see that it was curious. Slowly, very slowly, the wolf came closer. It stretched out its neck and touched the food with its nose. Then it opened its mouth and took the piece of nutrition bar with teeth that looked like they could bite through steel. The wolf chewed carefully. Its eyes never left Jinwoo's face. After a moment it swallowed. Jinwoo smiled and offered another piece. This time the wolf came even closer. It took the food more confidently. When Jinwoo reached out his hand, the wolf let him touch its snout. The metal scales felt warm and smooth, like polished steel. The other wolves saw what was happening. One by one, they came down from the hills. Jinwoo shared his food with all of them. Soon he was surrounded by 8 metal wolves, all eating nutrition bars and letting him pet their strange fur. Jinwoo realized something important. These creatures were not mindless predators. They were intelligent and social. They lived in family groups, just like wolves on Earth. They were curious about new things and willing to make friends with strangers who showed them kindness. When the food was gone, Jinwoo stood up. He needed to keep walking to reach the research station before dark. The wolves watched him prepare to leave. The largest wolf, the one who had approached him first, made a low rumbling sound. It was not threatening. It sounded almost like a cat purring. Jinwoo started walking north again. Behind him, he heard the soft sound of metal paws on rock. He turned and saw all 8 wolves following him. They kept their distance at first, but as the hours passed, they came closer. By late afternoon, they were walking beside him like old friends. Jinwoo began to understand something that the orbital scans had missed. The crimson wastes were not empty. They were full of life, but it was life that had adapted to conditions that would kill normal creatures. The metal wolves were just the beginning. As the day grew darker, Jin-Woo saw more creatures. There were things that looked like jellyfish floating in the air. They glowed with soft blue light and seemed to dance in the toxic wind. There were insects with wings like stained glass that flew in perfect formations. There were small lizards, with armor made of crystal that ate rocks and left behind tiny gems. All of them watched Jin-Woo and his pack of wolves pass by. None of them seemed afraid. By the time Jin-Woo saw the research station in the distance, he had 8 metal wolves, 3 floating jellyfish, and a dozen crystal lizards following him. They moved together like a strange family. The research station looked bad. Parts of the building had been torn away by the storms. The metal walls were melted and twisted, but lights still glowed in some of the windows. People were alive in there. Jin-Woo looked at his new friends. The largest wolf made that purring sound again. The jellyfish pulsed with brighter light. The crystal lizards clicked their tiny claws on the rocks. They were telling him that they wanted to help. For the first time since leaving the council meeting, Jin-Woo felt confident that the rescue mission would succeed. He was not alone anymore. He had found allies in the most unlikely place. The toxic wasteland had become home to the strangest family in the galaxy. The research station looked like a broken toy that a giant child had thrown away. Half of the building was buried under melted rocks. The other half had holes in the walls where the acid rain had eaten through the metal. But Jin-Woo could see lights flickering inside, which meant the emergency power was still working. His pack of metal wolves spread out around the station. They sniffed the air and made low growling sounds. The floating jellyfish creatures drifted higher, their blue, light pulsing faster. Even the tiny crystal lizards seemed nervous. Jin-Woo checked his scanner. 8 life signs were still showing inside the station. All of them were weak, but they were alive. "Hello," Jin-Woo called through his suit's radio. "This is Ambassador Jin-Woo. Can anyone hear me?" Static filled his ears for a long moment. Then a familiar voice answered. "Jin-Woo?" It was Jin, the human scientist. She sounded tired and scared. "How did you get here? The storm should have killed you." "I had help," Jin-Woo said, looking at his metal wolf friends. "Where are you?" "Emergency shelter, center of the building." "But Jin-Woo, you cannot come in here. There are monsters outside. They have been circling the station for hours." Jin-Woo looked around. His wolves were calm now. The jellyfish floated peacefully above them. The crystal lizards were cleaning their armor with their tiny tongues. "I think the monsters are my friends now," Jin-Woo said. Through the broken walls, Jin-Woo could see into the emergency shelter. 8 people were crowded into a space meant for 4. Jin was there, along with the 7 alien researchers. They all looked sick and frightened. Dr. Kil-dong, the blue Altarian plant expert, was leaning against the wall. His normally bright blue skin had turned gray. The small, furry Kethran geologist was shivering even though the air inside was warm. The robot-like Nexari had scorch marks on his metal body. "The life support system is failing," Jin explained, through the radio. "We have maybe 12 hours of clean air left. The water recycler broke 2 days ago. We are drinking melted ice from the emergency supplies." Jin-Woo walked around the station, studying the damage. The building had been hit by flying rocks during the storm. Acid rain had eaten through the outer walls, but the inner structure was still solid. The largest metal wolf walked beside Jin-Woo, its yellow eyes watching everything. Suddenly, it stopped and made a soft whining sound. It was looking at a pool of green liquid that was eating through the station's foundation. The wolf stepped into the acid pool. Jin-Woo gasped and reached out to pull his friend to safety. But the wolf was not hurt. Instead, something amazing happened. The acid stopped bubbling. The green liquid turned clear and harmless. The wolf's body was somehow neutralizing the poison. Did you see that? Heijin's voice crackled through the radio. She was watching from inside the shelter. Jinwoo knelt down and touched the water where it had been acid a moment before. His suit's sensors showed that it was now completely safe to drink. More wolves came over and stepped into other acid pools around the station. One by one, the dangerous chemicals became clean water. The floating jellyfish began to pulse with different colors. Where their light touched the broken walls, the metal stopped melting. They are not just surviving in this environment, Heijin whispered. They are fixing it. Jinwoo realized something incredible. The creatures of the Crimson Wastes were not just adapted to the toxic conditions. They were the planet's cleanup crew. They processed poison and turned it into something useful. The crystal lizards were eating the melted rocks around the station and leaving behind small piles of pure metals. The jellyfish were somehow repairing the damaged walls with their light. Even the metal wolves were helping by cleaning the toxic spills. "We need to get you out of there," Jinwoo told the survivors. "The life support will not last much longer." But how could he move 8 sick people through 15 kilometers of toxic wasteland? His ship was too small to carry everyone. The rescue ships could not fly in the poisonous storms. The largest wolf made that purring sound again. It walked over to Jinwoo and lay down, as if inviting him to climb on its back. Jinwoo stared at the creature. It was as big as a horse and looked strong enough to carry a person. But could he trust it? The wolf looked up at him with those intelligent yellow eyes. Jinwoo could see kindness there, and something else. The wolf wanted to help. Carefully, Jinwoo climbed onto the wolf's back. The metal scales were warm and surprisingly comfortable. The wolf stood up easily, as if Jinwoo weighed nothing at all. Other wolves gathered around them. There were enough to carry all the survivors. "You want them to ride on those things?" Dr. Kildong's voice came through the radio. He sounded terrified. "The wolves will not hurt you," Jinwoo promised. "They want to help." It took an hour to convince the survivors to leave the safety of their shelter. But finally, one by one, they climbed onto the backs of the metal wolves. Heijin was first, followed by the others. The robot Nexari was too heavy for one wolf, but 2 of them worked together to carry him. The tiny Kethrin rode with Heijin. The gas creature from the nebula worlds floated alongside the jellyfish, who seemed happy to have a new friend. As they prepared to leave the station, more creatures appeared. Large armored beetles came out of the ground, their shells gleaming, like black mirrors. Flying creatures that looked like metal butterflies circled overhead. Even stranger beings emerged from cracks in the rocks. All of them wanted to join the rescue mission. Jinwoo found himself leading a parade of the most amazing creatures he had ever seen. The metal wolves carried their human and alien passengers with gentle care. The jellyfish provided light for the dark journey ahead. The crystal lizards cleared rocks from their path. The armored beetles carried extra supplies that Jinwoo had, salvaged from the station. As they began the long journey back to Jinwoo's ship, Heijin spoke quietly to him. "This changes everything we thought we knew about hostile environments," she said. "These creatures have turned a toxic wasteland into a functioning ecosystem. They work together like parts of a giant machine." Jinwoo patted the neck of his wolf friend. Sometimes the most dangerous places hide the most beautiful surprises. Behind them, the ruined research station was already being cleaned and repaired by creatures that had stayed behind. In a few days, it would be like new. The Crimson Wastes were not a wasteland at all. They were home to the most cooperative species Jinwoo had ever encountered. And now, impossibly, those species had adopted a group of lost scientists and were carrying them to safety. The galaxy was about to learn that even the most poisonous places could be full of friendship. The rescued survivors had been traveling on their metal wolf friends for 6 hours when the first problem appeared. Dr. Kildong, the blue Altarian, started making sick sounds from the back of his wolf. "I need food," he said weakly. "My species must eat every 8 hours, or we become very ill. Jinwoo checked his supplies. He had given most of his emergency food to the metal wolves when he first met them. What was left would feed maybe 2 people for one day, but he had 8 survivors to keep alive, and the journey back to his ship would take at least 12 more hours. "We will starve before we reach safety," whispered Dr. Min Seo, one of the green Zephyrian weather experts. Her normally bright skin was turning pale. The other survivors were getting weaker too. The small furry Kethrin had not eaten anything in 2 days. The gas creature from the nebula worlds was losing its glow, which meant it was running out of energy. Even He-Jin looked tired and hungry. She had been sharing her food with the alien survivors, leaving little for herself. Jinwoo knew they had to find food soon, or the rescue mission would fail just when they were so close to success. He looked around at the strange landscape of the Crimson Wastes. Every plant they had seen was adapted to the toxic environment. That meant the plants processed poison to survive. If he could find a way to make them safe to eat, they would have all the food they needed. The largest metal wolf seemed to understand Jinwoo's problem. It made that purring sound and walked toward a group of tall plants with silver leaves. The wolf bit off one of the leaves and chewed it carefully. Jinwoo watched in amazement. The wolf's body was somehow removing the toxins from the plant. After a few moments, the wolf spit out a small piece of green material that looked like normal plant matter. Jinwoo's suit scanner showed that the processed plant was not only safe to eat, but full of nutrients. "You can make the poison plant safe," Jinwoo said to the wolf. The wolf made a happy sound and wagged its metal tail. Other wolves joined in, processing different plants and producing small amounts of safe food. But it was slow work, and they had 8 hungry people to feed. That was when the floating jellyfish began to help. One of the jellyfish creatures drifted down to a cluster of crystal formations that grew from the ground like frozen trees. The jellyfish wrapped itself around one of the crystals and began to glow brighter. The crystal started to change color, from red to blue to green. When the jellyfish moved away, the crystal had become something new. It was soft and squishy, like a fruit. Jinwoo's scanner showed that it was full of water and sugars that most species could digest safely. "The jellyfish are turning minerals into food," He-Jin said in wonder. More jellyfish began processing the crystal formations. Soon they had produced enough crystal fruit to feed the entire group. The taste was strange but good, like sweet water with a hint of metal. The crystal lizards wanted to help too. They showed Jinwoo deposits of rocks that contained concentrated nutrients. When the lizards ate these rocks, they produced small pellets that were like concentrated nutrition bars. Even the armored beetles contributed. They dug into the ground and brought up roots from deep underground plants. The roots were naturally safe to eat and tasted like spicy vegetables. Working together, the creatures of the Crimson Wastes had created a complete meal for their rescued friends. As the survivors ate their strange but nutritious dinner, Jinwoo realized something important. These creatures were not just helping because they were kind. They were part of a complex system that turned waste into resources. The metal wolves processed liquid toxins. The jellyfish converted minerals. The crystal lizards concentrated nutrients. The beetles accessed deep food sources. Together, they could survive in any environment by working as a team. "This is incredible," said Dr. Yunho, the crystal being from Vorth Prime. His energy patterns were brighter now that he had eaten some of the processed crystal fruit. "These creatures have solved the problem of resource scarcity. They can create food and water from almost anything." The robot Nexari was examining the processed plants with his sensors. "The nutritional content is superior to most standard rations," he reported. "These creatures are more efficient than our best food processing machines." As night fell over the Crimson Wastes, the group made camp in a sheltered area between 2 crystal formations. The jellyfish provided soft light, while the metal wolves kept watch for any dangers. But Jinwoo was beginning to think there were no real dangers in this place. The creatures here were too busy helping each other to waste time fighting. The small, furry Kethran geologist, whose name was Dr. Sung Min, was feeling much better after eating. She had been studying the crystal formations where they were camping. "These are not natural crystals," she announced. "They have been grown deliberately. The internal structure shows signs of intelligent design." "What do you mean?" Jin asked. "I think these creatures are not just surviving in the toxic environment," Dr. Sungmin explained. "They are building in it. These crystal formations are like cities or storage facilities. The entire landscape has been engineered." Jin Woo looked around with new eyes. The strange spires and formations they had seen were not random. They were placed in patterns that helped the wind carry away toxic gases. The crystal formations collected and stored clean water from the air. Even the placement of the metal deposits seemed designed to provide the raw materials the creatures needed. "The whole wasteland is like a giant machine," Jinwoo said slowly, "and all the creatures are parts of that machine." The largest metal wolf came over and lay down next to Jinwoo. Its warm body felt good in the cool night air. The wolf's yellow eyes reflected the light from the jellyfish, making them glow like tiny stars. Jinwoo scratched behind the wolf's metal ears. The creature made that happy purring sound and closed its eyes contentedly. "We are going to change the way the galaxy thinks about hostile environments," Jin said. "When the Council sees what these creatures can do, it will revolutionize our approach to planetary colonization. If we can convince them that the scary monsters are actually friendly neighbors," Jinwoo added. One of the floating jellyfish drifted over and settled on Jinwoo's shoulder. Its soft light was warm and comforting. The tiny crystal lizards had gathered in a circle around the group, their armor catching and reflecting the jellyfish light in beautiful patterns. Even the armored beetles had joined the camp, their black shells forming a protective barrier around the sleeping area. Jinwoo had never seen such cooperation between so many different species. On most worlds, different creatures competed for resources. Here, they shared everything and worked together to make life better for everyone. As he settled down to sleep, Jinwoo wondered what other surprises the Crimson Wastes held. Tomorrow they would reach his ship and begin the journey back to the space station. But he was no longer thinking about this as just a rescue mission. He was thinking about it as the beginning of a new friendship between humans and the most amazing creatures in the galaxy. The metal wolf beside him opened one yellow eye and looked at Jinwoo. In that look, Jinwoo saw intelligence, kindness, and something that might have been affection. The galaxy was about to discover that the most dangerous places sometimes made the best friends. Jinwoo woke up to a strange rumbling sound that seemed to come from the ground itself. The metal wolf beside him was already awake, its yellow eyes bright with excitement. All around the camp, the creatures were moving restlessly. The floating jellyfish were pulsing with rapid flashes of light. The crystal lizards were clicking their claws on the rocks in a rhythm that sounded almost like music. Even the armored beetles were lifting their heavy bodies and moving in circles. "What is happening?" Jin asked. She was sitting up on her blanket, looking worried. Jinwoo stood and looked toward the horizon. In the distance, he could see something that made his breath catch in his throat. A wall of creatures was moving across the landscape like a living river. There were thousands of them, maybe millions. Metal wolves ran alongside floating jellyfish. Crystal creatures that looked like walking trees moved next to swarms of flying insects with glass wings. Huge armored animals that Jinwoo had never seen before carried smaller creatures on their backs. "It is a migration," Dr. Sungmin whispered. "The entire ecosystem is moving." The rumbling sound was getting louder. Jinwoo could feel it in his bones now. It was not just the sound of moving creatures. It was the sound of the planet itself, changing. As the Great Migration approached, Jinwoo began to see what it was really doing. The creatures in front were the metal wolves and other processing animals. They were cleaning the toxic spills and neutralizing the acid pools. Behind them came creatures that Jinwoo had not seen before. There were giant beetles that seemed to be replanting the areas that had been cleaned. Flying creatures were spreading seeds from the air. Worm-like animals were coming up from underground to aerate the soil. "They are terraforming," He-Jin said in amazement. "The entire migration is a planetary cleanup operation." Dr. Yun-Ho, the crystal being, was studying the approaching creatures with his energy sensors. "The coordination is perfect," he reported. "Each species has a specific role. They are working together like a single organism." The migration was heading directly toward their camp. Jinwoo realized they had two choices. They could try to get out of the way, or they could join the migration. The largest metal wolf made its purring sound and looked at Jinwoo expectantly. The creature wanted them to come along. "We should move," Dr. Kildong said nervously. "Those big creatures could step on us without even noticing." But Jinwoo was studying the pattern of the migration. The creatures were not moving randomly. They were following specific paths that avoided obstacles and dangerous areas. If his group joined the migration, they would be protected by thousands of creatures who knew this environment better than anyone. "We go with them," Jinwoo decided. "That is insane," protested Dr. Minseo. "We could be crushed or lost in that crowd. Or we could be part of the most amazing natural phenomenon in the galaxy," Jinwoo replied. The first creatures of the migration reached their camp. Jinwoo held his breath, but the metal wolves and jellyfish that were leading the way simply flowed around the humans and aliens like water flowing around rocks. Then Jinwoo's wolf friends joined the migration, and suddenly the rescued group was moving with the great river of life. Jinwoo had never experienced anything like it. He was riding on his metal wolf friend, surrounded by creatures of every size and shape imaginable. Above him, flying creatures formed patterns in the sky that looked like living art. Around him, walking creatures moved in perfect harmony despite their different sizes and speeds. The small crystal lizards had found places to ride on the larger creatures. The armored beetles were carrying passengers of their own. Even the floating jellyfish had organized themselves into groups that provided light and guidance for the ground-based animals. As they traveled, Jinwoo began to understand the true purpose of the migration. This was not just about moving from one place to another. This was about healing the planet. Wherever the migration passed, the landscape changed. Toxic pools became clear lakes. Acid-burned rocks became fertile soil. Dead areas came alive with new plant growth. "Look at that!" He-Jin pointed to an area they had just passed through. Where there had been nothing but poisoned ground an hour before, small plants were already beginning to sprout. Dr. Nexari was recording everything with his internal sensors. "The efficiency is remarkable," he said. "They are accomplishing in hours what would take our terraforming machines years to achieve." The migration moved for 3 days. During that time, Jinwoo and the survivors became part of the great ecosystem. They learned which creatures were the best to travel with. They discovered new foods and new ways of working together with their alien hosts. The gas creature from the nebula worlds found that it could communicate with some of the atmospheric, processing animals. Dr. Sung-min learned to identify the mineral deposits that the crystal creatures used for building. Even Dr. Kildong, who had been the most afraid, began to relax and enjoy the incredible journey. On the second day, they encountered something that amazed even Jinwoo. The migration met another migration coming from a different direction. For a moment, Jinwoo thought there might be conflict between the two groups. Instead, the migrations merged into an even larger river of life. Creatures from both groups mixed together, sharing resources and information. New partnerships formed between species that had probably never met before. "They are not territorial," He-Jin observed. "Competition does not seem to exist here." Jinwoo was beginning to think that the creatures of the Crimson Wastes had solved one of the galaxy's biggest problems. Most species fought over resources. These creatures created resources and shared them with anyone who needed help. On the third day, the migration began to slow down. Jin Woo could see his ship in the distance, but something had changed. The area around his ship, which had been barren and toxic when he landed, was now green and alive with new growth. The migration had healed everything in its path. As the great river of creatures began to disperse into smaller groups, Jin Woo felt sad to see it end. He had been part of something incredible, something that most beings would never experience. But his wolf friends were not leaving. Neither were the jellyfish or the crystal lizards or any of the other creatures that had helped. With the rescue, they had bonded with the humans and aliens, and they wanted to continue the friendship. "How are we going to explain this to the council?" Dr. Minseo asked as she climbed down from her wolf friend. Jin Woo looked at the transformed landscape around them. Where there had been a toxic wasteland 3 days ago, there was now a garden paradise. His ship sat in the middle of a field of flowers that sparkled like jewels. "We are going to show them that the most dangerous place in the galaxy is actually the most helpful," Jin Woo said. The largest metal wolf came over and touched Jin Woo's hand with its nose. The creature's yellow eyes were bright with intelligence and affection. Jin Woo knew that this friendship would last for the rest of his life. As they prepared to load the survivors onto the ship for the journey back to the space station, more creatures gathered around them. They brought gifts of processed foods, clean water, and beautiful crystals that could be used for advanced technology. The rescue mission had become something much bigger. It had become the first diplomatic contact between humans and the most cooperative species in the galaxy. The universe was about to change in ways that no one could predict. The rescue ships from the Galactic Council appeared in the sky above planet Kepler 442b exactly 48 hours after Jin Woo had left. Captain So Young was flying the lead ship, and she expected to find either nothing at all or the wreckage of another failed rescue attempt. What she saw instead made her call for backup. "Control, this is rescue team leader So Young," she said into her radio. "You are not going to believe what I am seeing." Below them, a procession was moving across what used to be called the Crimson Wastes. But the wasteland was not red anymore. It was green and blue and gold, covered with plants and clean water and crystal formations that caught the sunlight like mirrors. At the head of the procession was Ambassador Jin Woo, riding on the back of a creature that looked like it was made of liquid metal. Around him walked dozens of other amazing creatures. Flying animals circled overhead in perfect formations. The ground itself seemed to sparkle with life. "Is that Jin Woo down there?" asked the voice from control. "Yes, sir," So Young replied, "and he seems to have made some new friends." As the rescue ships landed, creatures scattered in all directions. But they did not run away in fear. Instead, they formed a protective circle around the humans and aliens that Jin Woo was escorting. So Young stepped out of her ship and stared in amazement. The 8 survivors from the research station were all healthy and smiling. They were riding on creatures that should have been trying to eat them, and they were carrying bundles of plants and crystals that glowed with their own light. "Ambassador Jin Woo," So Young called out. "What happened here?" Jin Woo climbed down from his metal wolf friend and walked over to greet the rescue team. Behind him, his strange companions made musical sounds that might have been laughter. "We made friends," Jin Woo said simply. Jin came over carrying a bundle of crystal fruits. "Captain So Young, we need to contact the Galactic Council immediately. What we have discovered here will change everything we know about hostile environments." Dr. Nexari, the robot researcher, was downloading data from his internal sensors. "The terraforming capabilities we have witnessed exceed our most advanced technology by several orders of magnitude." So Young looked around at the transformed landscape. 3 days ago, this had been the most dangerous place in known space. Now, It looked like paradise. How is this possible? She asked. One of the floating jellyfish drifted over and settled on So Young's shoulder. Its gentle light was warm and comforting. So Young reached up carefully to touch the creature. It felt like touching a cloud made of starlight. They are not predators, Jin Woo explained. They are gardeners. The entire ecosystem works together to clean and repair damaged environments. The largest metal wolf approached So Young. Up close, she could see that its scales were not really metal at all, but some kind of living material that just looked like polished steel. The creature's yellow eyes were gentle and intelligent. Slowly, So Young reached out to pet the wolf. Its scales were warm and smooth. The creature made a sound like a cat purring, but deeper and more musical. "It likes you," Jin Woo said with a smile. More rescue ships were landing now. Their crews came out expecting to find survivors who needed medical attention. Instead, they found a celebration. The creatures of the former Crimson Wastes had prepared a feast for their visitors. Crystal fruits that tasted like the sweetest water, processed plants that provided perfect nutrition. Even the air seemed cleaner and easier to breathe. Dr. Sung Min, the Kethran geologist, was showing the rescue teams her samples of the crystal formations. "These are not just storage devices," she explained. "They are computational matrices. The creatures use them to coordinate their activities across entire continents." "You mean they have a planet-wide communication system?" asked one of the rescue team members. "More than that," said Dr. Yunho. "They have a planet-wide consciousness. Every creature is connected to every other creature. They think and act as one organism." The implications were staggering. The creatures of Kepler 442b had achieved something that most civilizations only dreamed of: perfect cooperation, perfect harmony. And they had used it to turn a toxic wasteland into a garden world. As the rescue teams prepared to transport the survivors back to the space station, Jin Woo faced a difficult decision. His metal wolf friends wanted to come with him. So did many of the other creatures. But could they survive away from their home planet? "The atmospheric conditions on the space station will be very different," Jin Woo told the largest wolf. "You might not be comfortable there." The wolf made its purring sound and touched Jin Woo's hand with its nose. Through some kind of mental connection that Jin Woo did not understand, he got the impression that the wolf was saying it would be fine as long as they were together. Dr. Hai-Jin had been in communication with some of the atmospheric processing creatures. "They want to help us," she reported. "They are offering to share their terraforming technology with the galaxy." "In exchange for what?" asked Captain So Young. "Friendship," Jin Woo said. "That is all they want. To be friends and to help make other worlds as beautiful as this one." The rescue operation became something completely different. Instead of evacuating survivors from a disaster, they were establishing the first embassy between the Galactic Council and the most advanced ecological civilization ever discovered. Several of the creatures volunteered to come back to the space station as ambassadors. The metal wolves, the floating jellyfish, some of the crystal lizards, and even a few of the armored beetles wanted to learn about other worlds and other species. As Jin Woo's ship lifted off from the surface of what was no longer called the Crimson Wastes, he looked down at the paradise below. In just a few days, he had witnessed the transformation of an entire world. More importantly, he had made friends that would last forever. The radio crackled with a message from the space station. It was High Counselor Vextail. "Ambassador Jin Woo, the Council requires a full report on your rescue methods. How did you accomplish what so many others failed to do?" Jin Woo looked at his metal wolf friend, who was sleeping peacefully in the ship's cargo bay. Around the wolf were gathered all the other creatures who had chosen to come with him. They looked like the strangest family in the galaxy, but they were his family now. "Tell the Council I will give them a demonstration," Jin Woo replied, "and ask them if they are hungry. I have learned some very interesting recipes." Behind him, the creatures made those musical sounds that he had learned meant happiness and laughter. 6 months later, the planet formerly known as Kepler 442b had been renamed New Eden. It had become the center of a galactic environmental restoration project. Damaged worlds from across the galaxy sent representatives to learn from the amazing creatures who could turn poison into paradise. Jin Woo had been appointed as the first human ecosystem liaison, a job that mostly involved making friends with strange creatures and helping them share their knowledge with other species. His pack of metal wolves had grown to include creatures from dozens of different worlds. They worked together to establish restoration projects on planets that had been written off as hopeless. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous places hide the most beautiful solutions. And humans had a special talent for finding friendship in the most unlikely circumstances. But perhaps the most important discovery was that cooperation was more powerful than competition. Working together, different species could accomplish things that none of them could manage alone. The universe was a big and sometimes scary place, but it was also full of friends waiting to be discovered, even in the most toxic wildernesses. Jinwoo smiled as he watched his metal wolf friends playing with a group of young aliens who had come to learn about environmental restoration. The creatures were patient and gentle teachers, showing the children how to turn polluted water into crystal-clear streams. "What are you thinking about?" asked Jin, who had stayed on New Eden to study the ecosystem. "I am thinking about dinner," Jinwoo replied. "The jellyfish promised to make that crystal fruit salad again, and the beetles found some new mineral deposits that taste like chocolate." In the distance, the Great Migration was beginning again. Millions of creatures were gathering to heal another section of the galaxy, turning wasteland into Wonder One, planet at a time. The toxic wilderness had become home to the greatest friendship in galactic history.